Issue 101. We start out with Techno saying that electrical power has been restored to Mobius, after the giant EMP wave that got rid of it for the entire planet. It's already been completely restored that fast. And Tails tells Sonic in a field that there's going to be an election to decide between two different new world leaders. World leaders, yeah, that's the power vacuum part kicking in. Thing is though, there's no way either of them would be as ridiculously over-the-top evil as Eggman. I can only imagine him and Grimer willingly continuing the Badnik problem, let alone being such strawman polluting industrialists. So while another world dictator will obviously be a problem, who cares at that point? Still better than Eggman. Tails says Sonic might change his mind about them both being losers if he listens to their speeches at City Hall, and he does that while calling him Buddy. He decides to watch the speeches anyways with his friends despite thinking it'll be boring, so why even come? Was he lonely? The world candidates make incredibly minor and silly campaign promises, making it obvious that this is all just a parody. Derek Wombat promises free school gravy for every child, reducing the number of annoying buttons on shirts, and whiter snow on Christmas. The first shows that he's willing to have less money be spent on that for the schools or something rather than him being greedy, or maybe he's hoarding the money that he's gonna spend less of. And the whiter snow thing implies that he'll reduce the pollution that's blackening the snow, meaning that he's the liberal. Then Giles Baboon says that he'll lower the legal haircut limit to elbow level, ban the wearing of white socks, an unnecessary ban there. You'd think he'd realize that would make him the obvious bad guy right away, and he'll encourage the forming of more boy bands. These guys clearly have no idea what they're doing. You'd think people with actual experience being leaders would be doing this, like people who went into politics in college. But maybe Eggman already had all the government people and the people who studied government killed, leaving no one competent to take its place. The candidates are asked if they plan to help the victimized ant colonies, with it being revealed that a big anteater ate someone last week. The candidates' reactions imply that they never even considered that and will probably forget all about it. Then there's an entertaining and funny news broadcast where Wombat and Baboon, after an argument concerning homework for parents, put on armored battle suits and have started fighting each other, causing collateral damage to nearby buildings in the process because they couldn't bother to do this somewhere else. Imagine if this happened in real life. You'd think this would get them disqualified and they'd find other candidates. But no, desperate for excitement, Sonic takes off to stop them, and we see Wombat's laser cannon being shielded by a shield, and the other guy throws a lamppost. Then the candidates reveal to Sonic that they both intend to demolish Metropolis and build a car park. It's really unlikely that they both have the same idea by coincidence. I guess it wasn't, and one of them really did steal the idea from the other. But what I mean is it's really unlikely that both of them would agree with that idea. It sounds pretty outlandish. Sonic destroys their battlesuits and has them both tied together to a lamppost. It tells them, despite their offers to bribe him, that to escape they'll need to work together, and we never see them do it. Fortunately, justice prevailed, unlike in the real world, as after they were seen fighting on TV and damaging the city, nobody voted for either of them. If even one person voted, one of them would have been put in charge, which would have happened in the real world. Why were they even kept in the running? A civilian says that only Sonic is good enough to rule Mobius, and Tails cheers at that, being too naive and young to realize that Sonic would be a terrible leader. Sonic immediately proves he's a lot smarter and in touch with what he'd want in life than Scourge, because he says, "Thanks, but I'm not cut out for a desk job." Exactly! He loves thrills and adventures, and fighting as a hero. He wouldn't want the paperwork of running a whole country, let alone a whole planet. And Scourge wouldn't either, which is why it sucks that we never outright got to see him hating the paperwork of that. Sonic, talking as if it's a brilliant new idea that nobody's ever thought of before, because that's so him, says near some civilians, maybe no one should have the power to rule the whole planet. Perhaps each zone should have its own leader to care for its people. And a civilian says that it's a cool idea, as if he's never heard of that before. How young is he? He doesn't look young enough to have not been alive when Eggman wasn't ruling. And when Sonic's asked how they choose their zone leader, Sonic snarks, maybe you'll have less hassle if you flip a coin instead. Again, this is why Sonic and Scourge aren't cut out to be kings. They're like me, they get very bored and impatient of those kinds of decisions. No way either of them would want to be hassled to make every little minor decision they don't care about. I don't think Sonic would care about that kind of stuff. In the next story, Zachary has escaped through the tunnels of the floating island. And for some reason, the people of Emerald Hill, or rather one brave person speaking for them, says they want to go home now that Eggman's gone. Then the robots reboot and briefly try to attack, and then Knuckles explains that the robots serving Zachary were destroyed, and the civilians made them defend themselves by attacking first. Guardian robots, that's pretty cool. And they justify Knuckles not spending all his time in the Chaos Chamber guarding the Emeralds finally, because they can do it instead. Where were they during that entire story arc where Knuckles was gone from Angel Island? It's a very good thing that the island is floating and you can't just have any thief go to the island. Then Knuckles says that to get the civilians home, he'd have to lower the island. The story ends with him and Porker in the Chaos Chamber, with us conveniently cutting past us getting to see how exactly he manually lowers the island himself. I guess he pulls a lever? And Knuckles looks forward to an age without Robotnik, as the comic condescendingly tries to pretend that we'll never see him again. No, that'd be too different from the games. We can't have that stick. In the next story, we see a farmer on a tractor in a giant vegetable garden in Plowright Zone, a farm near the now disused chemical plant. At night, strange figures prowl the streets in the village nearby, and some young sheep people see them, causing a special agent to want to investigate paranormal activity in a weird parody. It turns out that rather than being stolen, some of the giant vegetables have started walking and threatening them. And I have the biggest smile on my face again because this is hilariously weird out of context. Only in a Sonic comic. Fortunately for them, Sonic shows up because he somehow knew to come here, and so vines grow to grab him beneath his feet and he gets threatened by a talking potato. And just typing that gave me the biggest smile on my face once again. I can tell this is supposed to be a comedy relief story, and it did its job. His name's King Edward, ruler of the Vegheads. Why would vegetables that just started to start walking with sentience already have a king? Did they take a vote? Or were these really monsters all along disguising themselves as regular giant vegetables? Yeah, regular giant vegetables. The first and third stories were by Lou Stringer. All around, this was a surprisingly great issue, especially the final story. The first story shows us the realistic consequences of Eggman's defeat, leaving a massive power vacuum without a Princess Sally or her father there to fill it responsibly. Not to mention the fact that in Archie we had Robotnik having sub-bosses to explain realistically why he was able to run the whole world. Whereas here, I don't think he has sub-bosses, so he literally ruled the whole world himself. Meaning that with Robotnik gone, we don't have a situation where there's still sub-bosses of his terrorizing other parts of the world. So here, two people try to become the leader of the whole world, when obviously the only people who want to run for that job would be power-hungry creeps who don't care about the people. And they don't, as out of nowhere, they end up fighting each other in battle suits that damage the city they're trying to rule, until Sonic defeats them and says the obvious at last, that maybe people should have their own leaders for every zone. And everyone's so used to being under Eggman that they're talking like that's a brand new idea to have democracy and shit. Also, it fascinates me, how big is a zone in general? Are zones like the size of a city? Like, that would be a pretty fascinating idea that now Mobius is an entire planet of mere city-states. Of course, that idea didn't last in the real world for a reason. I'm sure that eventually all the zones will start warring to, like, get more territory for themselves, and there'll be just there'll be countries instead of just one person ruling one zone. He'll rule multiple zones. But for now, it seems to work just fine. The second story was by Nigel Kitching. And after Zachary escapes into the tunnel, the people of Emerald Hill Zone say that they want to go home from Angel Island, and Knuckles says to Porker that he could use his help. It's just some downtime, really, not much happens. Really, we could have skipped this and just cut to them coming back to Emerald Hill Zone. And the third story is a charming comedy relief one, where it turns out a farmer is being attacked by sentient giant vegetables. And Sonic, who knew to show up here somehow, gets grabbed by vines in front of a talking king potato. It sounds too ridiculous for Sonic. But then I remember that it's a Sonic franchise, and that just typing about it made me smile. And if that doesn't make it good, I can't think of anything that would.